Hey guys, I hope that you guys are doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha and I welcome you to my channel. I hope that you guys have been enjoying my videos, that you're learning and growing from them. That is my ardent desire with them. In this video, I wanted to share with you guys something that I learned recently, something that I've been thinking about a lot recently as well, and that's with regards to our intuition. As you guys might know, you probably do know, as an INFJ, our introverted intuition is one of our superpowers. It is how we know things before someone even says anything. We know all of these things and we have a hold on all of these scenarios and all these possibilities because our intuition is so powerful. We have the capability of gathering large amounts of data and then culling them into information tidbits that are basically our intuition speaking to us, right? And so our intuition is very powerful as an INFJ. And I specifically am always trying to improve my intuition in so many different ways. I guess I'll do a video on that on a later day on how I do that. But in this video, I want to focus on how I feel like sometimes INFJs have this tendency to forget that there is something called trauma, right? And so sometimes we think that something is dictating, is telling us something. Our intuition is telling us something, I believe. And we believe that it's our intuition, but in fact, what it is, it's our trauma, right? I'll just give you a quick example just to clarify it a little bit. In my own case, I've had a couple of heartbreaks due to past relationships, very common. And this is life, this is humanity, this is what it is about living in this world. You're gonna get into relationships, you're gonna get your heart broken, and you're gonna learn from it, right? I love it. I'm glad I went through those scenarios. I'm glad for the people that came into my life, and I'm glad that they're not there anymore. I am happy for all the experiences that I've had. But in my life right now, in my heart right now, in my mind right now, I have this sort of fear of going back into that scenario of heartbreak relationship, right? And so in my head, I'm thinking that this is my intuition telling me to stay away from all these people. You know, brilliant, amazing men will come into my life, people will come into my life, and I'll be like, oh, he looks interesting or she looks interesting. And mostly he looks interesting because I'm mostly heterosexual. And I'll think, oh, I think we could try something out, or we could date, or we could go for a dinner. But instantaneously, as soon as I have that thought in my head, I'll have this beeping warning sign saying, no, don't do it. You're going to get your heart broken. He seems like a player. He's going to take advantage of you. He's going to run you over. He's going to leave you behind. He's going to abandon you. He's going to reject you. He's going to not like you for who you are. He's going to hate you. He's going to hate your true self. You're going to have to change yourself for him. You're going to have to change all your habits for him. You're going to not be able to work as much. You won't be able to do your morning routine anymore. And so all of these beeping warning signs go off in my head, and I'm sitting there thinking, all right, so my intuition's telling me that this person's not right for me. Obviously, or I think in my head now that I read more about it and I think more about it, I don't think it's necessarily my intuition telling me that this person's not right for me. I think it's my previous trauma that's telling me that this person's not right for me, which is obviously, in a lot of cases, false. And this results in me being single, which is fine. I don't mind being single, but I don't like the fact that I'm pushing away people that could potentially be an amazing partner for me, that could teach me a lot of stuff. I'm pushing them away because I'm thinking that it's my intuition telling me, falsely thinking that it's my intuition telling me that I should stay away from this person, where in fact it's just my previous trauma that's speaking up, right? And that's a really important delineation that we need to make as an INFJ, because we want to rely on our intuition as much as possible. I'm always telling you guys to make sure that you trust your intuition. And this video is not necessarily saying that you shouldn't trust your intuition. Our intuition always leads us right. No matter what it is, I've always been led right by my intuition. But I know that there's a difference between my intuition and my trauma. And little by little now, I'm beginning to realize the voice that's different between my trauma and my intuition. My trauma is always negative, right? And it's always telling me that there is danger all around me. I'm always feeling unsafe and vulnerable and threatened by my environment and by the people around me because of my trauma. But if it's my intuition, it's not always negative. In fact, a lot of times, I would say 90% of the time, it's pretty positive. And it tells me to go forth and do this and be impulsive and be spontaneous and try different things out, meet different people, go off on different adventures. It's always leading me into the right space. It's always leading me into growth and expansion rather than making me contract myself, right? Whereas my trauma, on the other hand, as I said, always makes me contract myself. It always tells me that the world outside is unsafe, that everyone is a threat, that you need to be careful, that everyone's going to take advantage of you, that you have to be, you have to be really, really closed off to the people that come into your life because you don't know what they might do to you, etc., etc. Now, I'm not saying that every person that comes into my life is safe or that every scenario that happens in my life is positive, right? But I really wanted to do this video specifically, not only because it has helped me so much, but because I know it'll help you guys as well. In this scenario, now that I know that there is a difference between the voices in my head, and there's one voice that's the intuition voice, and there's one voice that's the trauma voice, I'm really not trying to pay attention to when these voices speak up. So when one voice speaks up versus another, I always pay attention, I perk up and I think to myself, all right, okay, so is it my intuition actually that's speaking up, or is it my trauma, right? And there's so many different traumas associated with our life. If you've lived in this world, you're gonna have trauma. It's just the way of life. It's the way the world works, the way the humanity works, right? It's all about suffering and growing, suffering and growing. You can't grow without going through all of these scenarios. And so it's fine. I'm not saying anything against trauma. Trauma is actually a really important thing for us to grow and expand as a human being. But we need to remember that a lot of these scenarios that we're being pushed into or pulled out of, a lot of these scenarios that would be actually positive for us, that would be a growth, a place of growth, turns into something that is unsafe, that we think is unsafe, and we run away from. And I've done that many times in my life in the past, where I've met someone amazing that could potentially be an awesome partner for me for a little bit, for a long while, whatever. And I run away from the scenario because I think that I'm letting my trauma guide me. And now I realize that in the past I used to think, oh no, this person's not the right person for me. They're scary. They're going to do something bad to me. I don't trust them, etc. And I run away in the opposite direction like a crazy person. And so I don't want to do that anymore in my life, and not only related to relationships, but also related to growth in my business, growth in my friendships, my partnerships, growth with my relationship with my family. I don't always have to run away from my family and my parents. They're not always against me. They're obviously mostly on my side. And unfortunately, because of past traumas, I'm always like, oh my God, I don't know if they're going to take advantage of me, or are they going to do something to hurt me? I have to be careful. I don't know what they're going to do, etc. And so I don't want to play that victim trauma role anymore. I don't want to be that person who runs away from everything without thinking twice about it. What I'm doing now, in order to differentiate between the voices or the noises in my head, differentiating between intuition versus trauma speaking, is really paying attention to the source of that voice. And it takes a little bit of time and a little bit of learning and a lot of effort and presence in order to gauge this, right? You can't just be sitting there and suddenly something speaks up in your head and you're like, all right, it's my intuition speaking, or oh, it's my trauma speaking. You have to actually sit down and pay attention to it. Most of the times, I trust my intuition really, I trust it a lot, right? And so I'm usually going along with what it says. And that's why I feel like my intuition is very powerful. And my intuition's voice is much more powerful than my trauma voice, because I've trusted my intuition for so long and I've used it for so long, and I'm always working with it and I'm always growing with it. But for you, if your intuition's voice is not as strong, perhaps your trauma voice is going to be stronger than your intuition. And you're going to have to perk up even more than I do, and you have to really pay attention to the voices in your head. Think about where that information that you're getting, where is it coming from? Is it coming from a place of trust? Is it coming from a place of sadness, regret, bitterness, or past trauma? And that's something that that's only for you, right? No one else is going to be able to tell you that this is where your voice is coming from. You have to be the one who has to peek inside your heart, peek inside your head, or just pay attention. Sit down still for a moment and think about where that voice is coming from. And if you do sit down still for a few moments and you really start paying attention to the voices in your head, It sounds a little bit odd. But you start paying attention to where the source is, you'll start realizing where all of these voices are coming from. And little by little, you'll be able to ignore the trauma voices and you'll be able to focus on the intuition voice, right? And that's basically where we want to get to, is that our trauma is never going to stop completely speaking, right? It's always going to be there in the background telling us that the world is unsafe, that we are under threat, that we need to be careful, that people are bad, that this world is going to kill you eventually or are going to hurt you. And so the trauma is always going to be speaking in the background. There is no way you can completely get rid of that voice, which is good because trauma obviously protects us. It's a protective defense mechanism. Previous trauma actually teaches you about the future, to be more careful, not to just jump into bed with the first person that you see or be in a relationship with the person who might abuse you or be narcissistic or whatever, right? It teaches you. If you've been with one narcissistic person, you can kind of gauge a little bit more when you meet another narcissistic person, and you can tell yourself, all right, I've already dated one crazy person, I don't want to date another one, right? So trauma is a good thing. It's actually our friend, not our foe. But we don't always want to be listening to our trauma when making our decisions. We actually want to be paying more attention to our intuition. And that, as I said, can only come through practice and through paying attention, silencing yourself, taking your time, and figuring out, where is this voice coming from? Who is speaking? Is it my intuition? Is it my heart? Am I speaking from a place of love and openness and trust? Or is it coming from fear and past traumas and all of those scenarios that happened in the past that make us feel like we want to contract and close up and hide from the world? And that's something, as I said, you will learn over time. Now that you know that that's a possibility, you're going to start opening up yourself to listening to the different voices in your head and figuring out, okay, where am I coming from? Am I coming from trust or am I coming from mistrust? And that's how you can start growing in that manner. Again, I hope this makes sense to you guys. It's a little bit of an abstract topic, and so I wanted to still do a video on it, even though maybe I did not explain it perfectly well. If you guys have any questions at all, please message me anytime. All my contact information is in the description below. And obviously you can comment below. I read all comments. I only read comments twice or thrice a week. I'm not going to read them every day, but I will eventually get to your comment for sure, so don't get impatient with me. Again, if you guys have any questions, message me anytime, and thank you for watching. I shall see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.